Yes, good morning. Welcome back to Football Heritage TV. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. This is a pre-recorded video. Big up Ash from Spurs Kings TV. It's been a couple of weeks, my man. How you doing?
Yes, brother, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm not sure if you're aware, but from the very minute we are recording this, so this is what, Thursday the 29th of August. There are 36 hours of a transfer window to go. I want to start off, first of all, everybody, please get over to Spurs Kings TV. You know where to find Ash. Please do subscribe to his channel. Show the love. It's what the community should be for. Ash, 36 hours to go of the window. It's strange. Normally, I feel some sort of excitement, not just from me, but from other people coming into the last 48 hours. There seems to be a bit of excitement, or could we do that? Or, oh, we could get this, and this player's coming in. I sense that it's very flat this year. All the noises coming out from the Ali Golds and the Paul O'Keefes and the Fabrizio Romanos and the Ornsteins is that Spurs have achieved what they set out to. Fans don't seem to be particularly happy with it. What's your take on this whole situation? Are we just negative Nellies that are never happy, or have we got a right to be a bit flummoxed by this transfer window?
Yeah, for me personally, I'm slightly underwhelmed, but I think if I'm trying to look at the side where we've got a lot of the players, unwanted players that we weren't using out of the club,
yeah,
I think some people would say, oh, that's an achievement. So if you split the transfer window into two, outgoings versus ingoings, then there's two conversations to be had. Outgoings wise, lots of people may argue, oh, you know, a lot of these players are on their way out already because they've only got a year left in that contract. And so therefore, is it really much of an achievement? But as we've seen with Ndombele, we've had to pay him out for that year. So actually getting some type of money to add to the kitty, essentially to help us to buy another player and to help us maybe in windows going forwards, then yeah, you could say that, oh, actually, it is good business. Because I do remember when Paratici first did it, and we got a few players out the window, and we didn't think we could get it done, and he managed to get it done. People were like, wow, we never thought we could get rid of these players. I didn't think we'll get over 10 players out in this window. I was shocked that we got over 10 players, because I heard that Ange did it at Celtic. He got rid of 10 players and he brought like his guys in. But when I envisioned it for us in terms of getting out all of this Deadwood, I'm thinking, yeah, all right, we're going to bring in some real heavy hitters. Even if it's some unknown quantities, it will be something where you can be excited about, because you're like, it's the potential and they could do this, they could do that. Now, where I'm slightly like underwhelmed is because I felt that we need to get cover for both left back and centre back, because that's where our season imploded, in my opinion. And we lost against teams we should have beaten, i.e., you know, your Fulhams, your Wolves, etc. Do you know what I mean? I think that's where the season was lost, in my opinion. In terms of frontline as well, we did sign a prospect in Odegaard who has had a season underneath his belt, to be fair to him. The fans are excited. And I think if we didn't sign him going into the game against Everton, I think it would have been really flat in that stadium, because we'd already lost what we now know is our marquee signing, Solanke. Do you know what I mean? So we would have been like,
look, you're right, Ash. There are two ways to look at this. I mean, again, when having the conversation of the outs versus the ins, I tell you what I find very interesting is everybody, we're all having to, not just you, or we're all having to lean so deeply into what's gone out to almost compensate for how disappointing it's been coming in. Now, I'm going to put a different spin on this. People will call it a negative spin, but I'm going to put a different spin on this. Yes, you're correct. A lot of those players were heading out. The Eric Dyers, you know, the Højbjerg had 1 year left. Sessegnon was a free, Tanganga, and yada, 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 yada. We'll look at that in a minute. But my big thing is always, when people talk about oh, good, we've got rid of Deadwood, right? Oh, good, we've got rid of players we don't need. The Deadwood are the same players that 3 or 4 years ago, Ash, most of our fan base were going, oh my God, look at this young project. When these players all come through together, watch us in 4 or 5 years. For me, and if negative Savva, I almost feel like we're doing the exact same thing, Ash. I feel like we're getting rid of these players now that didn't work out, bringing in loads more youth. And let's be brutally honest, not all the youth are going to work. It never happens like that. And for me, we should have brought in 3 or 4 quality players to go alongside those youth prospects. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, that was my sentiments, and that's why I said underwhelmed. I mean, the argument is that the players that we're bringing in into the squad, there shouldn't be such a drop off as in seasons before. We've got players in, and then the drop off's been enormous, and that's the reason why we struggled season after season. And I think where we shopped for example, Archie Gray. Now, the jury's still out for me personally, but the argument is that he's a third generational footballer. So with the third generational footballer coming from Leeds, he was basically the PFA player, like young player of the year. So essentially, what you do every season, you've seen West Ham do it. We've done it in the past. You take whatever's the best player in that league for that season, who's performed the most, and you put them into your squad, and you'd hope, and this is a big word, hope, that they would produce some of that ability, or they would improve season after season.
Yeah, I get it.
You're getting, your money's worth, because I felt like, 40 million was a big chunk of the actual budget. The argument is that we don't spend the actual whole 40 million. You spend like 25 or whatever it is to the club, and then you spend that over a couple years, and then there's add-ons, blah, blah, blah. Gets boring. You know what I'm saying? But the point I'm trying to make is it would be nice if we could complement an Archie Gray, because we got Bergvall as well. I don't include him technically in this window, even though he does feel like a new signing. You would complement him with a starter in the 11 that could help add competition to the existing players that we have, whether it be a defensive player, because lots of people want defensive player in our team. Because I know from when I've grown up, Spurs have always been soft in the center. And what used to get me excited, I remember when Edgar Davids first came, and I was like, oh my day, finally, we've got a player that's going to show us up. Obviously, he was on the back end of his career.
Still class though, wasn't he? Oh my God.
Player, and he had that kind of tenacity. I remember Scott Parker, even the same day Miller came in. I was like, right, Scott Parker, grafter in the midfielder. I was excited about that.
Ash, what I wouldn't give now for a Scott Parker in our midfield, if I'm brutally honest, a solid 7 or 8 out of 10 every game, loves a tackle, loves having the football, a leader of men. I think I'd take Scott Parker all day long. But can I ask you, Ash, look, I get it, right? I get this theory. And I think the difficulty where I'm struggling to I don't want to say cope, that's completely the wrong word. It makes it sound like I'm having a breakdown. Where I'm struggling to understand the transfer window from my point of view is, I kept saying to everyone, we've already got Bergvall coming in who's 18. You've already got your 18-year-old midfielder that you're going to bring in, nurture, hope that he develops, put him alongside the more senior pros. For me, I didn't see the need to go and get another 18-year-old midfielder so that you've got to try and balance nurturing both of them. And other clubs I see, they tend to do the one-on-one. So what I mean by that is when I look at Man United's transfer window, Man United have gone and bought Lenny Yoro as a young, up-and-coming centre-half. They've also gone and bought Matthias de Ligt as a vastly experienced player who's played and won multiple trophies in the biggest clubs in the world. They've gone and bought Xerxes, right? Young, up-and-coming. They've then also gone and bought Manuel Ugarte, who's a vastly experienced international footballer who's played for the biggest clubs in the world. Spurs have gone the complete opposite. And I'm not saying we're Man United. I'm not saying they're going to finish, necessarily a million miles above us or below us. But I feel like other clubs are getting that balance. We've shifted completely to this youth methodology. And it doesn't go, Ash, with anything the club have said for the last 5 years. Game-changing stadium, compete with the big clubs. We've got our Spurs back. None of what we're actually seeing from an actions point of view is matching up with the words that we're hearing. That, for me, is what I'm holding the club to, Ash. I'm holding them to their words. Other fans seem to be really happy with these actions of, oh, more kids, that's great. Where do you sit with actions versus what was sold to us, so to speak? I suppose what's written on the tin, I want what's written on the tin.
Yeah, I mean, I was sold that project as well. Well, you've got to be patient. Look what Arsenal did. They had to wait. They weren't able to get players straight away. And I think the narrative at the moment has changed once again, but it's whether you buy into that narrative or not. Because at the time when we was getting into the stadium, I totally bought into the narrative that you have to be patient. You have to wait until the stadium generates that revenue, and then that way we can raise our wages. But now the narrative slips completely, done a 360 in my opinion, and they're saying now, because of the rules that are coming in, or that have always been there but are being more enforced, they want to lower the wage bracket even more. And that's the reason why we're going for younger players, not just for their potential, but the ability to kind of keep the wages down. Do you know what I'm saying? So we can, I don't know what we can do. Maybe we can go for other players for the following season. I don't quite know. That hasn't quite connected with me quite yet. I do understand that to lower the wage bracket is important because you want to, keep the club running properly. And we're comparing it to like other clubs, because other clubs now, they're trying to do the whole youth project. If you look across Europe, Bayern Munich, they're going for younger players. PSG, they're going for youth projects. Real Madrid, if you look at their team, they're full of youngsters. So
I think the difference is those guys are able to sign the cream of the crop of youngsters, right?
But we are Spurs. Do you know what I mean? Let's have it right.
I know we are Spurs, but listen. By the way,
what I'm trying to say is more like a Dortmund model, is what I mean. Like Dortmund kind of project.
And you know what, Ash, I get that, but then I think the owner and the manager need to get their message on point, because as I said before, when people say to me, "Oh my God, just support the," I get a lot. Just support the club. I don't know what that means. Like, I mean, I've been a Spurs fan for 40 years, Ash. We were just talking about old Spurs players off, backstream. But just support the club, sure. But I've got my chairman telling me this. I've got the manager telling me, not just me, all of us. I've got the manager telling us, raise your ambition. I'm here to win things. I win things in my second season. Cool. All right. So again, if you're telling me X, why should I then accept Z? Right. This is where there is, for me, I don't want to use the word. I can't think of the word. The disparity. It doesn't. It's like those batteries where you push them together. What the club are saying and what they're doing are two very different things. And for younger fans, Ash, I get it. I get a lot of the younger fans who go, "Oh my God, this we bought in ballers, and you'll see in 4 or 5 years." What I don't think those younger fans understand is, Ash, we've never seen a team do this and be successful. If we're going to be brutally honest, we've never seen a team do this and be successful. And you hit the nail on the head. We're Spurs, Ash. What this means for us is, if we keep doing this, all that will happen is we'll develop the Greys, the Bergvals, the Yangs, the Odebergs. In 2 years' time, 3 years' time, when we've not won anything because we're not bringing the quality to win, those players will leave. And then people will be going, "Oh, look, he was a brilliant player. What a signing." But as a collective, it doesn't actually yield results and trophies. So do you see what I mean by all that?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Luka Modric. We got him in quite a young age. Do you know what I mean? And he had quite a successful stint when he was here. Well, so successful, I say, in terms of like development and becoming a senior pro and just taking his game to the next level in a top league. I think he actually reached what he needed to. And then Chelsea came along, started sniffing. And then ultimately, Levy dug his heels in and said, "No, I don't want to sell you to the competition. I'd rather sell you abroad." And he went to Real Madrid. And Gareth Bale, we got as a young kid from Southampton. And I remember I listened to a few podcasts talking about how Liverpool wanted him. Do you know what I'm saying? And he was close to going to that club, but he managed to stay with us, and we developed him into a
Yep.
top world class leader, because every game he was just hitting at top bins and scoring last goals, and he ended up going to Real Madrid. So and there's a few other players as well that I haven't mentioned that we get them when they're young, and it's like we're that type of club now where we get these players and we kind of develop them almost like an Ajax or as I said before, teams that they're on that peripheral and we develop them. But
look at Michael Carrick, Carl Walker, these players all, we got them at relative young ages, brought them through. And this is what I'm saying. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Gray's never going to be a great footballer. Odeberg can't be a great footballer. Bergvall can't be a great. I don't know. You know me, Ash. I'm not one of these that puts these players on a pedestal at the age of 18, 19. Let them grow, let them learn. But the problem is we're putting them on pedestals. We're doing it with Van der Ven. He has a good year. We put him on a pedestal. The problem is when you put these players on a pedestal, more people talk about them, bigger clubs come in for them. And my concern is if at no stage, Ash, and we've seen this for the last 20 years, if at no stage we take stock and go, right, we've got a nucleus of a good team. Now, if we drop in 3 or 4 quality players, we can actually be a big player in this league or in these competitions. If we don't do that, and we've got history, this isn't me making it up. We've got history of this, as you just said. All we're doing is churning out good players, top players that bigger clubs take. I would have liked to have seen this window, and I'm going to bring up a graphic here. I would have liked to see this window. Sure, bring in Bergvall, Gray, and Odeberg. Sure, right? There you go. There's 70, 80 million. Now, add another 100 million and go and buy 3 first-team players. I'm not talking about Dominic Solanke. I'm talking about go and buy in 3 or 4 seasoned pros that have done it year in, year out, that you drop into the team that, not me, Ash, not you, all the fan base go, yeah, that's a good signing. Collectively, we all go, yeah, that moves us a level. And when I look at this, Ash, and sorry to cover your wonderful, sexy, chiseled face there, but when you actually look at this, it does show that when you look at what we've done here, this spreadsheet shows that we've made a £32 million saving in salaries, and we spent £50 million net profit. Now, with Lo Celso and Reggie about to go, depending on whether they're loaned to buy or what it be, that 50 million net profit could eat down into 10 million net profit, 20 million net profit. And my worry is, Ash, what is different from this to what we've seen the last 20 years? When people keep talking about this project and this process and this plan, can you tell me from looking at this, what is there that immediately screams to you that we actually have ambition and are doing anything different to what we've done in years gone by? Because the last thing I'll say, sorry, Ash, is, again, look at that top row and that middle row. Sessegnon was hyped up to be this great young player that we'd bought. Tanganga was going to be brilliant coming through. Joe Rodon, give him a couple of years. Troy Parrott. Ollie Skip was going to be brilliant. Brian Hill, when we signed him, was the best young player in Spain, according to others. Watch Jack Clark fly. Phillips, Scarlett Donnelly. None of them are at the football club this season. So aren't we just going round and round in circles?
I think what we've got to put into some type of context is what's happened behind the scenes. Obviously, we've had a completely change in backroom staff in terms of philosophy and how we want to play. Bringing those players in season after season. The only player I could think is maybe Sessegnon. At the time, he was bought for an attacking manager, and Dembele was as well. Obviously, he was, it didn't work out. But at the moment, the players we brought in, they're kind of for this new attacking philosophy. And if Lange is going to be there for the long run, I don't know if he will, just in case. I don't know.
He hasn't got a track record for it, and neither have we. But okay, all right.
I'm not talking about Ange Postecoglou. I'm talking about Lange, the sporting director. I don't know how long he will last, or if Paratici will come back into the fold, and Ange, for whatever, like a worst case scenario, Ange gets sacked, Lange goes as well. Do you know what I mean? And we start again. We rip it all up.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Attacking philosophy is what the route we're going down. So whoever comes in, it's going to be an attacking manager. So the hope is the style doesn't change. In the
Sure.
previous windows, we've bought players that no longer fit the style that we're going into. However, my caveat is I do agree. You do need one or two seasoned pros
Yeah.
that are going to come in and lift the profile of the club and then hopefully help us to achieve to win something, not just this season, but seasons to come. I do understand, like, these players may come good 2, 3 or 4 seasons, but
Yeah.
you need to be achieving something now to attract players in for the following seasons. Otherwise, we're gonna look like a selling club. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna have that type of feel.
For
So
sure.
I mean, that's where I stand with it. Like,
Well, let's look at, I mean, for example, if we use players like Van der Ven and Romero, for example, they're hyped a lot. And again, we're not going to get into how good they are, but they're good. They're good players. People can call them world class, class elite, brilliant, whatever you want to call them. They're two of our better footballers. And when fans are asked for patience, right? When somebody might turn around and go, "Oh, Ash, not so much you. You're more level headed than me, but oh, Ash, have patience. Savva, have patience." That's all well and good, but what no one seems to think about when they come out with these throwaway lines, footballers don't have patience, right? And this is the big thing. You can build a whole team around Van der Ven and Romero. If 1 year comes and we've not won anything, next summer people are going to be sniffing. You might hold on to them like we did with Modric. You might hold on to them for a year. The second year comes, you've not won anything because you're still buying kids and you're not actually adding in the quality you need to get you over the line. Now, the Van der Vens, the Romeros, they start getting the Munichs, the Man United, the Man Cities, the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids coming in for them. And I don't care what anyone says. When those clubs come calling and when you are 24, 25, 26 as a player, you go. You get your 5-6 year deal. You get your massive payoff. Yeah. And you go and win trophies.
I feel like it's inevitable.
That's the worry.
I think it's inevitable in my head, in my mind. And so logically, I'm thinking the club need to start proofing and planning for the next, 1 or 2 centre backs to come in, which means that we will drop off again because, again, every time we lose players, we're further back into the project. We have to restart again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, I just think we need to be very careful because I know a lot of the managers trying to pump into a lot of the players. You hear them coming out saying, we're going to win something this season. Like I've heard, I don't know if it's PR, but I've heard Romero come out and say it. You know what? The reason why I was like, I don't know if it's 100% PR because a lot of the players we've signed, they're saying the same thing as well. They're echoing what the manager's saying. And maybe, I don't know if they were promised that on arrival that we're going to be pushing for Champions League and the Cup this season. Do you know what I mean? And that's the reason why they signed on the dotted line. And I don't know if that was part of Ange when he comes into for example, when he comes to meet Archie Gray and he sat down with the granddad, the uncle, and dad, if he said, "Look, I'll see Archie playing in this position, and I want to lift the cup. I want to lift the trophy." And if he's selling that dream to them, I don't know if like all of a sudden that's the ambition of all these players, and if we don't achieve that, then Romero's off. Do you know what I mean? Because it's quite a knife edge, isn't it? If we don't,
of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, let's be fair. If Real Madrid haven't come in, and for some reason this seems to be the club being linked with Romero. I've not seen any solid notes about that, but people keep going, "Oh, Romero's wanted by Madrid." Let's play along with that. If Real Madrid came in, let's be brutally honest, right now, I'm talking about the day before the transfer window. Real Madrid came in and said to Romero's agent, "We want Romero," right? I don't care what anyone says. "Oh, but Cootie loves this club." And I don't care what anyone says, Ash. That man is going, do I want to play with Modric, Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Mbappe, Tchouameni, Alaba, Rudiger? Do you know what I mean? And he is looking at that and going, I want to go. Now, I'm not saying it would happen in 48 hours, But that's the problem we've got. We're constantly saying youth, 4 years, youth, 5 years, youth, 3 years. The problem is we've had that for 24 years, Ash. That 3-year project, that 4-year project, that 5-year project has now rolled into a 24-year project that doesn't appear to have an expiry date. And without an expiry date, everyone just keeps saying the same thing. It's a project, it's a process. None of the players to date have sat around, other than Son. None of our top players that we've bought or produced, whatever, have sat around and said, you know what? I truly believe in this. I'm going to wait for Spurs to win a trophy. No one has. And that is why everyone at the beginning, Ash, let me ask you an honest question. Yeah. I know you're an honest guy. If you and I had done a stream at the beginning of the window, we might have done. Yeah. And I'd said to you, what 4 players do you want to bring in this summer? What sort of caliber were you talking about? Give me a range of names that you would have been talking about Spurs should be buying.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it on numerous shows. Said it on Last Word of Spurs. I was banging the drum of Eze. He was the one I thought could help us, achieve something. He had a brilliant season at Crystal Palace. Yeah. And even the season before, I felt he was good. And I thought, okay, he's a player that could, drop into our system and start straight away and improve our starting 11. Do you know what I mean? Neto would have been another one. Even though people were saying, he's injury prone, etc., blah, blah, blah. I just thought the quality of the player is too hard to turn down. And I thought now is the best time to kind of get on that. He's been at Wolves for X amount of seasons. We could probably unearth him and take him out of that team, and he could help not complement our wingers, but improve.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Another player, I would have said there's so many strikers, do you know what I'm saying, out there. I thought we could have got. People say Tony, some people say Guy Carrez, some people say Openda. I'll take any of them. Do you know what I'm saying? I'll take any of them. I think they improve our team. Some of them have minerals, others have more pedigree across Europe, different, skill sets. But those 3 players alone, I thought, yeah, that could help us. Some people say that as a midfielder, Edison was good, Matt Sweeth has gone to Brighton. Wolves.
Conor Gallagher was talked about massively.
Conor Gallagher was picked, yeah. Wolves have just signed a player called Andre I really liked, and then we've been recently.
Is he from Fluminense? Is it the Fluminense guy? Yeah, I've seen him.
He's like a Gomez 2.0. Obviously, we were linked with Gomez recently. So all of these type of players, like the list goes on. Do you know what I mean? And there's a few other players that I've looked at and I thought, wow, if they drop into our squad.
So the reason I asked that is actually if at that time, because you're not alone in that. So I'm not saying you're not special, but you're not alone in that. Every Spurs fan at the beginning of the window, right? This is my point. Every Spurs fan at the beginning of the window talks about Eze, Neto, Gyökeres, Gallagher, Edison, this player, that player, right? And then we ended up with this. Now, if I'd said to you, Ash, at the beginning of the summer, if I'd shown this to Spurs fans, to any fans of any football club, and said, whose transfer window am I looking at? Forget they're in Spurs shirts there. But if I'd showed you that picture and said, whose transfer window is that? Don't tell me you would have said Tottenham Hotspurs and been happy with it.
No, of course not. Of course not. Very underwhelming. Because the ambition I had and what Andrew was spewing out in terms of like, we're going for it, lads. I just thought, yeah, we're going to literally proper back the manager this season and actually try and go for it. So, yeah, I know where you're going with this, man. It's not something you'd associate with a top 6, let alone a top 4 club or someone that's going for a trophy with. And we're in year 2 of the project. So in year 2, you're like, all right, cool. Let's see what his team and what he envisions for us moving forward. You know what I mean? And that's why there's more questions than answers.
Should year 2's summer window be worse than year 1's? I mean, surely isn't the aim that last year we laid some foundations with Vicario, Van der Ven, Maddison, a little bit of a spine.
Yeah.
Surely from that you go, right, well, there's your first 3 players that go into the first 11. You've already got Romero, Porro and Udogie are already there. Right, now let's fill out those other spaces. And let's be brutally honest, other than Solanke coming in, who statistically isn't actually better than Richarlison, but we won't go into that. Nothing's been improved, Ash. Like no one above us is looking around at Spurs and going, they mean business.
In terms of like, and it's down to opinion, because football is very opinionated sport, isn't it?
Of course.
I think what they've done is they've looked at what's needed in terms of the data analytics or profiles. I hate to use these type of words and buzzwords. It's boring now, but they're looking at the players that they brought in and are like, all right, cool. I think Brighton, they're doing it properly. That's the proper model. And what we're trying to do is something similar. I'm not saying we're doing Brighton. We're not. But we're trying to go for, all right, cool. Can this player fulfill this role? And can he do it adequately? All right, let's look at the data and let's do the money ball thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cheap players. We didn't buy cheap players, but for the players in the positions that needed to fill in, and do they have the acumen? Do they have the characteristics to perform what they need in that particular action? That's why, like, players like Odegaard, no one saw it coming, and everyone's like, split the fan base. Do you know what I'm saying? Some fans were like, oh, yeah. Some fans were like, no, I don't know, man. He's from Burnley. He's 19, not Burnley, but he's 19, another 19-year-old. Red head. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Isn't that the difficulty, Ash, though? Is like, look, for me, people keep asking about Odegaard, and I keep saying the same thing. I don't really have an opinion on it at the moment. Like, I'm not going to judge his game one. I mean, I think it's really difficult. You bring in a kid, they have 60 minutes in the first team. Equally, I think people just go well overboard about it. I've seen people going, oh, sublime debut. And you're like, well, hang on. You know, equally, I don't think it was a terrible debut. I think it was just a encouraging debut, you know, good. You know, got on the ball. You didn't look phased by it. Great. I think the problem is people would have been a lot happier with Odegaard if he had been the young winger, but a top winger had come in at the same time.
Basically, no Werner.
Right. Basically, what we've done is going to get Werner, and everybody said, all the people that were backing Werner said, yeah, but we don't know what we're going to do the rest of the window. Werner might be the backup to a top winger that we buy. So then your expectations are there. Then when you bring in Odegaard, and it's nothing about him. I'm not having a pop at him. He's a 19-year-old kid. And that's where the translation gets lost, Ash. That if people go, oh God, what? The best we can do is Odegaard. People have a go and say, oh, you don't like young players. It's not that. Odegaard, for me, should be the one that is slowly but surely introduced into the team whilst buying a top winger. And then, obviously, the news comes in yesterday that Liverpool have signed Chiesa, who a lot of people wanted, for 10.7 million, right? And that is where I think a lot of fans then go, hang on, what's going on? Chiesa from Juventus, you know, who's clearly a much better footballer than Odegaard right now. 10 million. Why are we not doing that? I'm not saying I wanted Chiesa per se, but do you understand why fans are frustrated when they see that?
I think the problem is, and sadly, it's like we needed a right winger desperately because Kulusevski, we've moved him on from that position now.
Yeah,
I mean, he does play there occasionally. So technically, you've only got Brennan Johnson there. And yes, maybe effectiveness is the argument over what we see on the pitch versus context in terms of can he do it over a 90-minute period? That's where the question marks arrive around Brennan Johnson. There's some fans that still have hope on him because of his numbers that he did put up. But my argument is he did that off the bench a lot of the time. And a lot of people still have hope that he could maybe contribute even better this season moving forward now that he's had a whole season along with the team. But I wanted the player that specifically could play the right wing and give him real competition, e.g. he would come off the bench again. Do you know what I mean? And do what against tired legs would work. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't make sense because Chiesa can play both wings. He's a very creative player. The other argument is that, he's got a lot of injuries and, he's lost a bit of explosiveness. If you look at his numbers since maybe 2021, they kind of dipped. I know that the injuries and that, but that's the two arguments that people have why he's so cheap. For example, 10 to 12 million.
Yeah.
And why did we go? But that's the reason why Ange even said it himself. He said that, well, that's the reason why we go for these type of players, because otherwise top teams will go for him. Do you know what I mean? So we didn't even.
That was also a worry. When he said about Werner, someone asked him, didn't they? They said, look, he doesn't score a lot of goals. And he said, yeah, if he scores goals, we wouldn't be able to afford him. That truly concerned me as to what Tottenham Hotspur want to be. That was almost like we're rubbish type statement. But look, the last thing I do want to mention here is, I'm a big component of. So I'm a big fan of. The aim has to be to close the gap. Right? I'm not saying in 1 year you suddenly go, we're better than City, Arsenal, Liverpool. I'm not. When people say that, that's not what I mean. For me, it's how do we close that gap to the point where those teams are just starting to look over their shoulder and go, hang on, Spurs are building something good here. When I look at Liverpool and I look at their forward options in wide areas, when I look at Núñez, Jota, Chiesa, Salah, Gakpo, I'm missing one as well there, I think. I think I'm missing a really obvious one.
That's enough.
Right. Okay. Then you add in Harvey Elliott, Szoboszlai, like young players like that, right? And you look and you go, yeah, look at the options. It's scary. Then you look at Arsenal and you go, Saka is a million miles better than anything we've got on a wing. Martinelli, Trossard. You start looking at this and go, okay. And then you look at, I don't need to do cities. Then you look at cities. Then I look at our wingers that we've signed in the last 3 transfer windows with Ange have been Odegaard, who's a kid, and we don't know what we're going to get. Solomon, who has already been moved on loan. Brennan Johnson, who most of the fan base don't actually seem to want this guy at the club. It's and Werner. I just can't see, for all of this data-led projects, for all of these young players that we hope, we're just not closing the gap, Ash. And that, for me, is the be-all and end-all. We can talk and talk and talk for days and months and years. At the end of the day, quality is what gets you over that line. And we're not signing any quality.
I agree, man. I think that's why the Chiesa one was more hurtful. I wanted a real killer in terms of goal threat. I think we need to replace Son, or think about replacing Son. Like, Son, obviously, he's 32 now. And so we don't want to get to a situation where it gets to the, like with Kane, we went forward planning and we didn't get enough. Some people might say Richarlison was the, replacement for Kane. But I would say, look, we need to buy differently. I know we can't replace Son like for like, but at least get a goal threat on that right-hand side. Just to add something a little bit different. If you can't find a left footer, then maybe find someone on the left side that can replace him. I know we got Odegaard, but is he Son's replacement? I'm not too sure. How long will he take to get in? If so, there's a lot of question marks if you're saying Odegaard's Son's replacement. But that's how we need to be thinking. We need to be in that mindset where succession planning, but we need to add goals so we're not relying on Son Heung-min or Maddison. If they don't have a good game, then where are the goals coming from? And people say, oh, well, that's why we bought Solanke in. But unfortunately, I would still say you need someone else, because he could be easily marked out the game because he's the highest man at the pitch. I would prefer a wide forward or an inside forward coming off that side and adding a goal threat. We need a killer. Simple as that.
Do you know what? I agree, Ash. My question mark over Solanke was, and we will wrap up in a couple of minutes, but my question mark over Solanke was always, do I think he can score goals? Yes. I don't think that's in question. My question mark was more, when you watch Bournemouth play, Bournemouth won't have teams that defend against them with 10 men behind the ball. So the space that Solanke would have to operate in is a lot more. Now you're asking him to play in a game. We saw it on his debut against Leicester, where Leicester will clog the box and the ball goes into Solanke and hang on, I've got 3 or 4 players around me. I'm not going to get my shot off as quick. I'm not going to have as many opportunities. So it can actually work backwards to people thinking, well, he did that at Bournemouth. Imagine what he does at Spurs. But look, we'll find out with Solanke. I make you right. I think we needed a killer. If I'm brutally honest, I watched Bournemouth the other day against Newcastle. I'm watching a player like Semenyo, and I'm going, I'd have you. I would have you all day long. Pace, power, assists, goal threat. Yeah, but we don't seem to get that. We go for the young, the Brennan Johnsons, the Odegaards. Look, Ash, just quickly, Levy time used to be a thing. Levy time, I think it was one window when we bought Van der Vaart, but ever since then, Levy time has stuck. Are you expecting any Levy time in the next 36 hours of this transfer window, or do you think we're done for incomings?
Not particularly bothered, if I'm being totally honest.
Brilliant.
Before I was like, I would have hope. My hopes kind of dimmed a bit. Could we? Yes, of course we could. We could bring in a left back and a centre back, and that would improve the window a lot more, in my opinion, if we did that.
Yeah.
I still really I really want a midfielder. I don't know if I'm being greedy or a winger or.
I agree with you.
I kind of want that kind of attacking threat because I still think we're slightly short in that end. Yeah. And I think that's the way to win games. Defensively, I don't think we're going to be that team that are going to be solid. Just the way we play. The way we play slightly open. But yeah, we could. Of course we can. Of course we can. But just to finish up, going back on that point, so my last point I'll make, just on that Solanke thing, I just thought when watching him, because players are onto him and he's pinning like 2 or 1 centre back, he could possibly be the target man where we kind of feed a Maddison, where Maddison runs into the box.
Agreed.
Understand? Agreed. Old school. I feel like old school 90s, Archie style link play. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the opportunities, I was like, instead of trying to get your shot off and getting it blocked, my man's
bring others into the game.
Bring others into the game. You could open for us. And I did see Spurs being a little bit more direct, even though he wasn't on the pitch against Everton. When Maddison had 2 opportunities, I thought he could have put away. But yeah.
No, look, I completely agree with you. And that for me is why I would have had another runner on the right-hand side that gets in the box and scores goals. But listen, Ash, thanks so much, dude. When we finish this, I still need you to WhatsApp me your 5 words. That might not mean anything to other people, but you will see in a video later. Watch out for my 5-word video later. Ash, legend. Please get over there. Subscribe to Spurs Kings TV, to Ash and Marlon. Great guys. Really nice people as well. And good football knowledge. Everybody, please please subscribe. I'll have another video later for the 5 words. And then I'll be live tomorrow for some sort of transfer deadline day that we'll try and get all excited for. And then probably sign someone like Trevor Chalobah on loan in the last hour of the window. Take care, everyone. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.